August at the con. My background, I'm an accidental war game. So my original orders to the War College back in 2004, I was going to the teaching side of the college. And if you're not familiar with the War College, it kind of has that classic university split. One half of the college is focused on students and the education side. The other half of the campus is focused on research. And that's where the wargaming department lives, on the research side, the Center for Naval Warfare Studies. But I was on my way to the teaching faculty. And about, I guess I want to say it's about 6 weeks before my orders to come to the college, I get this message from the personnel department of the college. And they're saying, hey, the guy you were going to relieve, and at the time I was still active duty in uniform, he decided to extend. So you don't have a job because the guy you were going to leave is still clobbering up the billet. But I said, well, look, the big Navy, the Bureau of Personnel really doesn't know where people are once they get to the War College, because for them it's just one unit code, and again, they don't know really what happens once you cross the gate. So why don't you come up? We can stick you in the wargaming department. They've got a spot opening. You're a senior aviator. That would be great. They're happy to have you. So we'll just hide you in wargaming for like a year, and then we can move you over to the teaching faculty. I says, okay. Wargaming. All right, I played Risk. I played Stratego. That's about the limit of my gaming at that point. So I show up, and that year goes by, and they say, hey, we can move you over to the teaching side. I said, you know what? I'm good. Leave me where I am. And that's kind of how I just stumbled into it in 2004. And I've been in the department ever since. I retired from active duty in 2007. I then just stayed on there at the War College. Although there's this little period of time in 2007 when I did retire, that there was a hiring freeze, federal hiring freeze at the time. So I could not go from active duty to just, joining the faculty as a government civilian. And the chairman, and the dean of the wargaming center just said, look, I'd hire you in a heartbeat, but I understand you got to keep beans on the table. You got to somehow stay employed for the next year. So if whatever you can do and stay local, we'll be happy to hire you when the opening comes. So I thought, okay, good to know. Wandered back down to my office, and the lead contractor who was on site comes over, knocks on my door, and says, hey, I hear you're trying to figure out what to do when you grow up. Come on down to my office. And I'm thinking this is going to be with this fatherly chat, right? George is an old retired helicopter pilot, had been in the contracting side of the house for a long time. So I thought this was just going to be a mentor thing. So we go down there and we sit in his office. And so what are you looking to do? What are your priorities, kind of thing? We're just chatting. He's giving me little bits of advice. And he says, well, have you thought about how much money you'd need to make for all of this to make sense? And I said, yeah, I did the back of the envelope stuff, the spreadsheet. And so I told him the number I was looking at. And he goes, okay, we can do that. It's like, wait, what? Oh, crap, this was a job interview. And I just blew the salary part because I would have gone higher. But I got hired on for that period. And again, the idea was do that for a year, apply to the government position. When the hiring freeze was over, then off we go. But in that year, because the college hadn't anticipated bringing on another contractor in that period, there was only a little bit of college funding for additional wargaming work out of me. But at this time, across the country in Redmond, the senior vice president for legal affairs at Microsoft has just lost a case, an anti-monopoly suit in the EU. Shocked Microsoft. Microsoft, a little bit of an arrogant organization when it comes to their legal department. And they were thinking, come on, this is going to be a no-brainer. We'll just, whatever. We'll go through the motions here, but we're going to win the suit. And they lose. So this sends Brad Smith, who's currently now the president of Microsoft, and he's wondering what to do. And he remembers he's reading a book at that time, War Plan Orange by Ed Miller. He goes, you know what? We need some war game. That's what we need. So he turns to his poor executive assistant and says, go find me a war game. Nicole doesn't know what to do. So we joke, she couldn't Google it because she's at Microsoft. She has to use Bing. So she Bings it. And it comes up with the Naval War College because, again, we've been doing it since 1887. And so they reach out to the War College and they get a hold of my old military boss there. And of course, he can't help them. The college can't help them. They're a private corporation, so they really can't make use of government facilities. But they said, well, there's a guy. He just retired, and he's kind of in between things, and he's with a contractor, so maybe he can help you. They get a hold of me, and next thing you know, I'm out doing wargaming for Microsoft. So I spent a stint kind of looking at wargaming through the business lens. And how do you apply the principles of that people making decisions in a competitive environment within a business context? So I did that for a bit for Microsoft. Also had some opportunity to do that with General Electric for a time. So that kind of gave me some of that perspective on gaming applied in the business side of the house. Then, fast forward, I'm working on a kind of a Habitat for Humanity project. And I'm just talking to the guy next to me as we're tearing out a sink out of a little bathroom. And he's like, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm at Hasbro. Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm at the wargaming, just war college stuff. He goes, oh, really? Tell me more about wargaming. And I was like, well, tell me more about commercial gaming. So we trade stories, and next thing you know, I'm doing consulting work for Hasbro. And so I got to see so I've got this triangle going in terms of gaming through a business lens to do it for competitive business purposes, gaming in the classic, kind of entertainment perspectives from a Hasbro board gaming side of the house. I did board gaming and toys for a bit for Hasbro. And then the classic wargaming for the government, because eventually we joked the war college, they had a car wash, they did a big sale, they scraped some money together, and they hired me back. So which is where most of my time now is spent, is at the wargaming department, or I do primarily game design and adjudication. That's kind of my niche within the organization. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how I came into this. Been doing it now since 2004. So it's 19 years and whacking at it. And in that time, I've been able to kind of leverage all three different perspectives. And probably one of the biggest things that all of that reinforced. And I always just, we kind of tell ourselves this, that games are games. Humans are playful creatures. And how we leverage that part of our brain and our genetics to whether it's to business purposes, entertainment purposes, or quote serious purposes, it's all a subset of game and play. And so there's huge amounts of overlap, intellectual overlap, in terms of how we look at problems when we're trying to design a game to get at something. So part of what I'll do then in August is, I'll kind of preview it here for you. I do a walking tour of the campus because the War College exists primarily. You can trace the War College's development architecturally and its buildings and whatnot through wargaming, because it was the dominant instructional technique since 1887. The college was founded in 1884, and since 1887, wargaming has been, we just say it's like part of the curriculum. It's like, no, it was the curriculum. That's how the curriculum was taught, is via wargaming. So as a preview of the campus, and I think Harold, probably gonna need to, Harold, if you'd enable screen sharing for me.
There you go.
Yep, I do have it. All right, and so let me give you. Okay, you should be seeing our campus. Yes, thumbs up from somebody if you're actually seeing the campus. Yeah, great. Okay, so Naval War College campus, where you'll be this summer, and right over here, as I click, there you are. Right over there is Founders Hall. And that's where the tour starts as well. Founders Hall is the old, it's originally the Newport Widows and Orphans Asylum. And it was purchased by the Navy and opened as a war college in 1884. Admiral Stephen B. Luce was the first president. But that's the museum now. That's where a lot of the events will occur this summer. And the early gaming, we'll again, if you're on the tour in the summer, we'll talk about kind of what kind of gaming was going on and how does the war college even come to gaming? What's its connection to Kriegspiel? There's a connection to Fort Adams down the bay and Lawrence Livermore, or William Livermore rather, McCarty Little. The characters are important in the story, and we'll talk a bit about that on the tour. But then from there, we're going to proceed just across the street over to Luce Hall. Luce Hall is the first purpose-built building on campus because we rapidly outgrow the Founders Hall. So this is built just prior to the Spanish-American War, and it was the whole kit and caboodle in terms of Luce Hall had gaming spaces classroom spaces, office spaces, dormitory facilities. It kind of was the entire college. And it's in that in Luce Hall, and the 2 gaming floors that were in Luce Hall is where much of when people talk about the interwar period and they get all misty-eyed about Warplane Orange, and this is where it was occurring. It was happening over in Luce Hall. So from Luce Hall, we're going to stomp around the corner over to Pringle Hall. Pringle Hall looks structurally very much so the same as Luce Hall. But when Pringle Hall was opened in 1933, it is the most sophisticated wargaming facility of its time. It's this huge floor, and we should be able to get in. The floor isn't there anymore in terms of the checkerboard floor. We think it's under the carpet, which is under the linoleum, which is under a bunch of other stuff, because this space has been renovated, but you can still see the bones of the wargaming facility that was in Pringle. And so we're in Pringle through the 1930s and 40s, and then into World War II. And so that's when our tour then will take us out to the backside of the campus where Sims Hall is. Sims Hall, it's an old barracks that the college acquires in 47 after the war. And it's going to have this interesting history and how the college uses it over the next 60 years. And it is in Luce Hall, or I'm sorry, in Sims Hall. Sims Hall's first is for overflow gaming, so to speak. The gaming floor there is actually still accessible. And it looks an awful lot like kind of like Pringle games until the 1950s, when along comes computer-based gaming. Okay, so this is the advent of NEWS, the Navy Electronic Warfare Simulation System, which is our big wargaming system. And that will reside over in Sims Hall through the Cold War. And then eventually we'll talk about, again, the history of computer gaming and how that changes both the student experience at the college as well as gaming's role in the fleet. And then from Sims Hall, we'll stomp on over to McCarty Little Hall. McCarty Little Hall is the newest facility on campus. It is the largest purpose-built wargaming facility for DoD at 110,000 square feet. We joke that the Marines are building a wargaming facility down in Quantico, and it's at 100,000 square feet. So it's like, we're still bigger. So I'm a Penn Stater. So between Penn State and Michigan, okay, we fight about who's got the biggest stadium, all right, and in terms of seating, all right, and because it changes as each of us modifies our stadiums, and the stadiums have grown, the Big House versus Beaver Stadium. Currently, they're a little bigger, so we're sensitive to that. So again, McCarty Little Hall is 110,000 square feet, and she is opened in 2000. Home for the Center of Naval Warfare Studies, and that's where all our gaming. That and Sims Hall, back building 4 that I talked about. Sims Hall, we dumped in about $12 million, and we've done a refit for Sims Hall, so that Sims is primarily our gaming facility, or I should say it's our primary we call it the high security gaming facility. So games at the top secret level and up are played over in Sims Hall, and our secret games and below can be played in McCarty Little Hall. So that's kind of the what popped up on campus where over the course, and you notice all of this is driven by wargaming and having the capacity to game bigger, to game more complex, and to game for higher and higher classification levels. So that's our lovely campus. And again, if you do the tour in August, I'll give you all the skeletons and all the stuff and where all the bodies are buried over the course of the college. So. That's part of it. College currently, it's a kind of a standard, we take students in August, they typically graduate in June. We do have what's called a rolling accessions program. So it's not just a spring class all the time. We do accessions in the fall and again in the winter type of thing. Students that come to us in the fall then just are here for about that August through June period and kick them out the door back to the fleet. If they come in the winter, then they have to summer over. And it's usually those students who then will get involved in advanced research projects and other activities during the course of the summer, since they gotta have something to do. Because we kind of go into a hiatus. Now, we say this is always kind of the joke. The teaching side goes into hiatus. The wargaming side, we're a 12-month-a-year organization. The wargaming department, just as we're sitting in the largest building, we have the largest standing staff. So our total staff, to include all my technicians and my enlisted support, runs about 120 personnel. So of the core gaming people, if you think of it, the core faculty is about 36 of which is pretty evenly divided. 1/3 contractor, 1/3 civilian, government civilians, and 1/3 active duty military. So because we've got the manpower, at any given time at the War College, we are programmed to do 8 major war games a year. At any given time, if you're kind of like you run your finger vertically through our event calendar, 6 games are ongoing. They're in some stage of either pre-game work, design, rehearsals, execution, or they're in post-game analysis. So at any given time, 6 things are kind of on the table. We try to get 8 within a calendar year. It's kind of what our mandate is. And like a lot of things, the Navy wants more. And we've said, well, there's a cost. So we're currently trying to expand our faculty numbers, because that's probably right now one of our biggest limiters. The building is a bit of a limiter, but because we expanded back into that old Sims hall and refurbed her, we do have a greater capacity again. But oftentimes what it boils down to is the humans. Our games are about a 6 to 9 month cradle to grave. From the time someone says, hey, I got a problem, to the time I'm handing you a report, it's about 9 months. And the War College, we used to be masters of our own fate in terms of what we gained. But now we're pretty much so driven around by the CNO and his office at OpNav, where the fleet now basically submits prioritization, war games, problems they have that they think might be appropriate for wargaming. We go through a huge prioritization and rack and stack process with the Pentagon, and eventually 8 games are selected for us to do in a given year. So that's kind of our that part of our today story. That wargaming part, the gaming, unfortunately, is not as strong as it was in our past. And now gaming, we're coming back to it. There was a period of time through the 1980s where gaming for students, it's not that it fell out of favor, but again, if you're at any institution where they keep adding requirements to your curriculum, but they don't want to take anything off, right? It's there's only so many classroom days, so many classroom hours that can be executed. So as they've added requirements, one of the things that kind of fell to the wayside for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about that if you're up on campus during the tour, was the student-centered wargaming. The Center for Naval Warfare Studies, despite the fact that I'm there at the Naval War College, actually does very little student gaming. We game for the fleet. We game for the Pentagon. We game for fleet commanders. Obviously, U.S. Pacific Fleet is a huge consumer of our time. So that's kind of how it's been focused. But during the day, a little preview about the Warplane Orange side of the house. And if you Google me and Warplane Orange, you'll find either on Goose, the Georgetown University's website, they've got a talk I gave on Warplane Orange and the War College. There's one on Invicta, the history site as well, that you can hear me rattle on for 45 minutes about Warplane Orange. But the important part that I want to underscore for Warplane Orange is the idea that the college did not, they keep saying the Naval War College and Warplane Orange, and Nimitz's quote about how through wargaming, the Warwich band was gamed by so many people, so many different ways that nothing was a surprise. Yeah, kind of. Okay. We have Nimitz's speech recorded. He spoke to the students in 1960 and 1961. And he wrote a letter to the president of War Cabinet in 1965. That kind of has that sentiment, but it's been taken out of context from my viewpoint. And what I think Nimitz was trying to explain in terms of his wargaming experience. Now think about this. So Nimitz is the class of 1923. All right. So think about the Navy in 1923. Dreadnoughts, biplanes, submarines are finally coming up about as equal number of times as they go down. So it's not the Navy he's going to fight with 20 years later in 1943. Yet, when asked about his wargaming experience, Nimitz says, it was one of the most invaluable parts of my military training was my wargaming experience at the college. Yet, the Navy he played with, little lead ships on the floor of, he would have been in Luce Hall, little lead ships on the floor of Luce Hall is not representative of the Navy he fought with in the Pacific. So it clearly wasn't about memorizing answers with dreadnoughts. And the rules, he would know from hindsight, we know from hindsight, that some of the rules that we used in the 1920s and 30s when he was a student were wrong. Our rules got the Japanese long lance torpedo wrong. We got night fighting wrong. We got radar implementation wrong. We got Japanese naval aviation wrong. We assumed they just mirror image us. And they had a very different approach. Okay, we got submarine employment wrong. We got the vague outlines of amphibious warfare about right, but a lot of things not so much. Yet Nimitz doesn't say, my wargaming was irrelevant because it was old, and in hindsight, it had a lot of things wrong about the Japanese. By the way, nobody jumps up and down about War Plan Black. War Plan Black? Yeah, exactly. Well, what, War Plan Black? Yeah, War Plan Black would have been the war plan for Germany. Okay, and the color, right? And the color coding system, orange was for Japan, black's for Germany, red was the UK, other colors for other countries. And the War Plan Black had us fighting the Germans in the Caribbean, right? It had nothing that looked like Battle of the Atlantic. It had no real considerations in terms of the submarine warfare that ends up being the dominant feature of the Atlantic. So no one runs around going, "Ooh, we got War Plan Black," but because we happen to get War Plan Orange, broadly speaking, quote unquote, right in hindsight, that's what everybody beats on about. But in truth, Nimitz didn't see the value of wargaming for the explicit representation of the enemy. It gave him a mental toolkit. It built for Nimitz and his staff. And as a matter of fact, all flag officers but one had been a graduate of the War College at the outbreak of the war, had a common understanding of things that didn't change: geography, the challenge of logistics, the tyranny of distance. These were all things that they would have had to wrestle with in the games, and whether they were playing with dreadnoughts or the Missouri-class battleship, it didn't matter. Whether they had Langley or eventually got to Yorktown and Enterprise in terms of air power, it didn't matter. It was that planner's rhythm of trying to understand what were the relevant pieces parts that I had to consider when looking at the threat before me. So while there are things that we know that the games didn't cover over the course of the interwar period, we played about 318 games in the course of that time period. And there's some things that popped up that didn't get covered in games. There are things we gamed that didn't manifest in the war. We gamed a lot about the Panama Canal, okay? And was no real threat to the Panama Canal, but we gamed that, all right? Because it was all about giving the students an opportunity to use a technique, wargaming, to gain that appreciation for how to think, not memorize the right answer. And that's the power of gaming, and it continues to be. We emphasize the fact that there's kind of this hue and cry right now that we need more models and simulations in wargaming. We need more accurate, realistic, validated data on the enemy to be able to wargame. It's like, no, we don't. Because if you're hinging everything on getting the model exactly right, and we know all models are wrong, some are useful, George Bach, then we're setting ourselves up for failure, as opposed to building a cadre of officers who are going to have to fight with whatever Navy they've got. It's the old, you go to war with the Navy you have, not the Navy you want. So if I'm going to build a cadre of officers who can work with whatever we end up acquiring, and I get the Navy's hand wringing, especially when we do stuff for the Chief of Naval Operations, because remember that when we buy stuff for a Navy, we buy it with the intent of holding on it for 30 to 50 years, and we spend billions of dollars to acquire it, right? Typically aircraft carriers, right? So you really want to have this hope that you got it right. And how do I know I got it right? Well, let's do some wargaming. It's like, okay, I understand the desire to have a tool to help inform decisions about fleet acquisition and future force design. But by and large, I keep looking to the student side of things. And quite frankly, the admirals that we work with now, probability, just statistically, given how old they are and how senior they are, that when the next war breaks out, most of them will be retired, rocking chairs, applesauce at home. They're not going to be the ones fighting the fight. It's my 04s and 05s today who are students who are going to have to fight the fight with the kit they got. And it's them that should be getting the maximum opportunity to wargame. So that's me on my soapbox. I get worked up about wargaming and who should be doing it and its value. All right. So with that, we have the opportunity to play a game. Now, the games that played during the interwar period, up until World War I, the game to play, the battle to understand, was Trafalgar. Trafalgar was this touchstone in the age of sail in terms of understanding tactical advantage and being innovative and what you could do at the time. And so everyone studied the hell out of Trafalgar. We did that until Jutland. Jutland is that transition battle where we go from Age of Sail, and every gamer had to go through a Trafalgar kind of understanding and playing out Trafalgar type events. That as we come out of World War I, we've got Jutland to look at, right? And Jutland becomes the battle to understand during the interwar period. And our rules for our gameplay changes in this period. And this September, I'll be down at the Naval Academy, the McMullen Center, doing for their history symposium. And I'll be part of a panel. We're going to be talking about how my part of the talk is how wargaming rules changed over time and why, and what impact that kind of had on tactical and strategic thinking. Our early rules that we played with at the college, up to, again, prior to about 1921, 1922, emphasized playability over, quote, accuracy. Right? But the only thing that they were hypersensitive to was maneuver. So here's kind of to give you an idea of it. In the old rule sets, and this would have been the same time that Fred Jane is game, coming up with his game, Fletcher Pratt, that a dreadnought was a dreadnought was a dreadnought. It did not matter whether it was a French dreadnought, a German dreadnought, a U.S. dreadnought. Didn't matter. We had but one class of ship. It was called a dreadnought. Same thing with destroyers, cruisers, etc. So there was no distinguishing for individual characteristics. There was no consideration of the fact that, well, this ship has got thicker deck armor than this ship. Didn't care. Dreadnought's a dreadnought, a dreadnought. The angle that you're shooting at, okay, whether you're shooting at a target broadside, you're shooting at a bow, don't care. Again, didn't matter. We're not going to get into aspect. Don't care. Okay. We will consider how many guns you can bring to bear. Broadside, you can bring more guns than you can bow and stern. And then what hits you get, deterministic. If you're at 10,000 yards and I'm shooting at you with an 8-inch gun, you get X number of hits. We don't roll dice. We don't do probability. We don't spread shots around. We don't do salvo modeling. That's the rule. Because at the time, the thing that mattered the most was learning how to maneuver your ships to put the most number of barrels pointing downrange at the target. So maneuver, that was measured to a gnat's ass. For maneuver, we had these big templates, kind of look like protractors with different speeds, and every knot's marked off on how many degrees deflection the ship will drop. We have a different template for destroyers than we do for battleships, etc. So it's all about maneuver. But then when we get to gunnery, measure the range, and all the gunnery was based on what's called the 14 hit rule, which basically said, you look at the ship, the largest caliber gun afloat for the time. And for a while, it was 14-inch guns. And they then tried to come up with an estimate that if you put a target ship 5,000 yards away from a ship with 14-inch guns, and you just hammered the hell out of the target, how long before the target sank? Right? How many hits would sink the target? All right, that's now the baseline. And everything else now is a percentage of a 14-inch shell hit. So maybe an 8-inch shell does half the damage of a 14-inch, so it's 0.5 hits. Everybody worked up a clever formula, and this is sort of like what was proprietary about, say, Fletcher Pratt's system versus Fred's system versus the college, on how many points a ship should be worth. So a dreadnought should be worth 20 points, but a cruiser should only be worth 17 points. And all ships die linear, right? So when you've got half your health gone, you're half your speed, half your propulsion. All right, it's not the way ships die, but it was all about keeping it playable. World War I comes along, and we look at the rules. We look at Jutland, and we say, if we were to play Jutland with our current rules, would we get a Jutland result? The answer is no. So they go, we've got to include more stuff in our rules. We're going to make our rules more detail-oriented. So suddenly, I go from a game where usually on most of our gaming, at the time period, it was 3-minute moves. Everything's 3 minutes on the floor. We start to make the rules more complex. Gunnery rules get much more complex. Now we're worried about spray, light, salvo, range, plunging fire versus flat trajectory, target aspect, pitch and roll of the shooting ship. Well, what else do we get into? There's about 8 pages of calculations you've got to go through in the old rule book once we come up with what's called the fire's effect system to be able to work out whether you get a gunnery hit. Now, the whole joke was, yeah, and aircraft, yeah, it was one paragraph. Throw some dice, that's fine. Right? Submarines, yeah, same thing. Throw some dice, that's fine. But gunnery was in super detail. And it now takes about a half hour of real time for the umpires to work up an answer every time the students move the pucks around, move the ships around. For 3 minutes worth of battle on the floor, it takes almost a half hour to work through all the tables and charts and everything to come up with who got hit. There are people who have criticized that tempo of play in that it lulled naval officers into thinking that naval warfare would be this bit of this analytic activity where you could study the horizon, study the radar plot, study the problem, think about it, commit to a course of action, communicate that. We'd all be coordinated in doing our thing. Savo Island comes along. And this is where this criticism comes from. Savo Island is the most violent 20 minutes in the surface Navy's history. It's a miserable defeat. And some people have pointed back at the kind of wargaming we were doing because the rules were so complicated, the gaming pace was so slow that it gave officers a false sense of tempo. Critics to that on both sides. The Brits have also come up with a similar type of analysis looking at how they were doing wargaming at the time. But if you go back to that, no one ever said wargaming with miniatures on the floor was a simulator, right? I'm not splashing water on you. I'm not rocking your world as you get hit by shells. I'm not trying to simulate the combat environment on the bridge of a cruiser circa 1940. I'm trying to give you the ability to think about the problem ahead of time. So you've built those habits of mind that might help you to survive when you actually run into it for real. So gaming has always been that balance. And of course, then it comes on with the computers, and I'll talk about that on the tour, about how computers changes, not necessarily for the better, our perspectives on how rules should work within wargaming. But so with Trafalgar, we designed an easy online game, simplified, all right? We're kind of more of a simplification perspective. And we can play here a handful of rounds. Gameplay is pretty quick. So here's how it's going to work, though, since I know who's going to be here. If you're interested right now in playing the Trafalgar game, active, you'll be put as the captain of a frigate in the 1800s. What I want you to do is go to the chat and just stick in your name and last initial. And then I'm going to pull that off, build the roster. We'll take a 10-minute break so people can recharge drinks and whatnot. While I load all your player information and set the battle space, and then we'll jump in. So go ahead and just stick in names and last initials, and I'll start writing these down. And I'll let you know what side you're on and what your ship is. And I'll call out the names, make sure I didn't miss anybody.
See, Merrill's adding some editorial to his label.
Oh, and there's a question about, is this for now or at the con? This is just for right now. We're gonna play a quick online game here. So you did. Yeah, yeah, Merrill. R and M and Jason W.
Edgar, just here to watch, is the worst name of any ship captain in history.
All right, so the rules for this game here, just in case you're running, I didn't look at the video, I don't know how to play. This is super simple. You're going to make 3 decisions each round. All right, you're going to be looking at a map. So instead of my face, you're going to see the battle map with all the ships. And I'm going to send you a link to a form, which is basically your orders. Okay, you're going to make 3 decisions each round, whether or not to turn your ship. Okay, and your choices are steam straight ahead, 45 port, 45 starboard. So you make that choice. Then how far you go. The maximum move, it's kind of a checkerboard kind of thing, so it's like a chessboard, is going to be 3 squares, but it's going to depend on where the wind's blowing from. And you'll see a little wind indicator, right? Because this is ships to sail, right? So basically, if the wind is somewhere abaft the beam position behind you to some degree, you're going to be able to move 2, 3 squares. As the wind comes around, because the wind will shift during the course of play. If the wind comes around onto the beam, now you're looking at 2-ish. If it starts to come into the off the bow, port or starboard side, looking at 1. And if it's right in your face, you're not going to move at all. But don't worry, you can put in as your helmsman knows, right? So you can put in, I think I want to move 3, but if the wind says, well, actually, your limit is 2, your ship is only going to go ahead 2. So how far you turn? 45 left, right, straight ahead. How far you go? And then which side of your ship you want your gunners to load the guns for. Your crew isn't big enough to man all guns on both sides of your frigate at the same time and shooting both to the port and to the starboard. So you're going to pick. You're going to say, well, based on where I am in the map, I'm going to turn. I'm going to come around the corner here. And I think then that the enemy should be about there. So I want to man up the starboard guns. Starboard guns. So 3 decisions. Turn, distance, and which guns you're going to be ready to fire. Your gunners, if they see a target in range, will shoot at the closest enemy on that side. So you don't have to worry about that part. All right. So that's it. That's all you have to do each round. Okay. And we'll give you, and the reason I had Harold set up a room is then once I tell you which side you're on, then if you want to cluster in one of the breakout rooms, you know, like all the Brits get together. This is the British v French. You can try to come up with some strategies real quick. What I have turned on the safeties, so to speak. The game, you have the option that your gunners are so excited and nervous, and there's so much smoke and mist and whatnot, that they tend to shoot at anything that's on their port or starboard side, friend or foe. But I've given you better gunners. They'll be sharp-eyed and be looking for the flags of your friends. And so you won't, even though you manned up the port guns, if on the port side, one of your friends comes steaming past, you won't fill them with cannonball. Okay. All right, so let me see here. The last I see, Jason. I've got a Chris M. All right, and I'm going to read these off and tell me if I missed anybody. And someone would like to be Jacob Jones. Jacob J. All right, so I've got, and if I miss anybody, let me know. I've got Harold B, Dennis B, Tim M, Andrew B, Jeremy W, Merrill R, Andy M, Jason W, Chris M, and Jacob J. All good. All right. 1, 2.
Chris M may be a double. I added that to.
Oh, you're
yeah.
picking on somebody?
So yeah.
Oh, okay. I got it. Yep. I saw that. Chris M is okay. So we'll just go with Chris M. And okay. All right. So time now. It's about 1/4 till. Give me about 10 minutes to load up all your names into the system. And when you return, it's a good time to get a drink or whatever. There should be a battle map up, and I'll let you know who's got what ship.
Pete, I have 17.
So, all right. So here are your fleet assignments. Who's on what side? So stand by everything. I need to pull the roster back up. All right. So on the French side, in the oh, hang on, fix the name. You're in the Alliance, not the Ajax. Okay, in the Alliance is Harold B. So what's important to remember is A. All right, your ship starts with an A. The game, really all you have to do is when you talk about your ship, it's just the first letter that matters. So Harold B, A. Dennis B, Britannia. Even though it's a French ship. They captured a British ship, they didn't rename it. Tim M, you're in the Conqueror, so C. Andrew B in the Defiance, that's D. Jeremy W in the Endeavor, that's E. So we got a 5-ship squadron on the French side. So again, Harold B has A, Dennis B has B, Tim M has C, Andrew B has D, and Jeremy W has E. On the British side, Merrill's got the formidable F, Andrew M, the Guardian G, Jason W, Hercules H, Chris M, Invincible I, and Kevin T, the Juniper J. Everybody got that? I'm assuming everybody got that. Okay. look over in the chat. You'll see from me at time 3:49 a link that says it's a Google form link. You're going to want to go to that form and either have that form available in another window, another tab on your Explorer. Some players like to put it on their phone, so they'll just because it's a pretty simple. It's a select, click, 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 enter kind of thing. So you can actually do it on your phone pretty easily. That way, they'll keep the computer, what we're looking at here, up because that's where the battle map's going to live, and then you can submit your orders via telephone or your smartphone, or have another tab open in Explorer. All right. So, but that's the link you're going to need to get to your move form, the move form. All right. I'm going to have you all do a test here in a second. Okay. So let me go back to my side of things here. Okay. I'm going to put up the battle map. Okay. I'm going to share a screen. It'll be the battle map. So this is where you'll come. And Harold's got the room set up that so for example, if you guys want to jump into the French breakout room, which Harold's going to turn back on again, as I see him looking down at his computer. There they are. Okay. So French, if you want to jump into the French breakout room, you should be able to jump in and out of the room. Should be. Doesn't always work exactly the way you think Zoom's going to work. But that's where you can get together real quick and talk. Understand though, that as soon as you go to the breakout room, you lose the map. Okay. So look at the map, study it, then jump into the breakout room, talk to your shipmates, your colleagues, then jump back out again. You're going to be on a timer, right, to get your moves in, just to keep the pace up. The first round, the first move, once I show you the map, show you the features of the map, I'll give you about 5 minutes to get your act together with your colleagues, come up with a little bit of battle strengths, and then submit your first move. If you submit a move and you hit submit and you go, that's not what I wanted to do, I got my port and starboard confused, just put in the order again. Same turn, same ship, just resubmit. The game takes the last order received as being the relevant order. Okay, so it just overwrites any earlier order you may put in. All right, any questions at this point before I flip to the map? Okay, so we're going to go to the map. Of course, I say that with, where'd my map go? Oh, hang on. Hang on. Get the map up. Okay, so now we'll share the map. Okay, you should be seeing a map with ships on it. Yes? Someone not
Yes.
up and there we go. Okay, so features to recognize here. Upper left-hand corner, that's the turn. So on the move sheet where it says, what turn is this order for? That's the number you put in. Don't try to think ahead going, well, if this is turn 1, I'm putting in for turn 2. No, stop it. You're putting in for the turn that's in the corner. So that make it easy. So turn 1. Okay, the wind. Okay, that's the next box over. You see right now the wind is out of the southwest. So think about how it's going to push your ships along. All right. The wind will change. It's a light and variable breeze today off the Cape Trafalgar. And if it changes, it'll flag yellow. So you draw your eye to it, that you'll notice that a wind change has occurred. Bunch of buttons for me. Over here, there's a little skull and crossbones. If you're looking and you go, hey, where'd my ship go? Look up here in the corner. That's Davy Jones's locker. Right? It means that your ship is sunk. So if you can't find it, there's a good chance that it's up there in Davy Jones's locker. Looking at the ship itself, okay, you can see the letters in the upper right corners, A, B, C, D, E, F. So there's all your French ships coming at each other. And then over there on the other side, you got all the Brits. So the French ships have that blue chevron, leading blue chevron. And the British ships have a leading red chevron and the letters. The red bar underneath your ship is your health, okay? So as that bar gets shorter, you're dying. But you fight full strength to the bitter end, okay? So your ship is as lethal in terms of firepower it can generate, how far it can move when it's down to its last remaining health point as it can the first health point. So now this is a good point to bring out from those of you who design games. Why do it that way? Why not have some sort of, oh, you're dying, your ship's getting weaker, it's falling out? That was done purposefully for engagement purposes. I play this game with Academy midshipmen. All right. And anytime you game in the classroom, one of the things you have to be sensitive to is the disengaged player, because they've lost their ship, they've lost their squad, they've lost the ability to play the game. The game isn't a whole lot of fun if you're not playing it. So how do you maintain engagement up to the bitter end. And one way is this idea that I want your ship to be capable up to the end, because otherwise you get a positive reinforcement loop, which, while may being realistic, just means that as soon as you start to take damage, you're less capable, which means you tend to take more damage, which means you tend to get knocked out of the game faster. I don't want students knocked out of the game. I want them to play the bitter end. So that's a design consideration in this game, is that you will be just as lethal when you have 1 point of health as you do right now with 10 points of health, by the way. That's your 10 points of health is what you got. You inflict more damage the closer you are. So when you are basically 1 square away from your adversary, you're going to put 3 deterministic hits into it. There's no randomizing. If you're close enough and there's an enemy that's off your beam, remember these are frigates, so all you do is shoot off the beam. There's no shooting fore and aft. All right. You'll do 3 points of damage. If you're 2 away, 2 points. If you're 3 away, 1 point, and beyond that, you're out of range. So there are your ships, right? You can see it's a grid system. Numbers down the left edge, alphabet across the top. There is one more row at the bottom if you get down there, right? But there you are. So, yeah, questions. What will happen is you're going to submit those orders. The first thing I'm going to do is have everybody send in what's called the test order to make sure that you got connectivity, you're on the right page, all that good stuff, right? Once I see that you've all submitted a test, we'll start the clock. You can run into your little rooms, come up with a strategy, and the game is to the side that inflicts the most damage, okay? Maximum of 10 rounds. Let's see how you do. So the first thing we're going to do, go to that form that you pulled the link off of the chat and send me a test order. So when it says, what turn is this for? Say test. What you put after that, I don't care. It's just a test. Don't worry, that move isn't going to be used. So just send in the test. So I've already got 3 out of the 5 French moves have come through. So I know 3 out of 5 French players. I'm still looking for, okay, I got 3 out of the 5 Brit players. So I'm looking for B and E on the French side, and I'm looking for G on the British side. So that'd be Dennis B. Who's E? Jeremy. Oh, there you go. I just got Jeremy's. Okay, so I'm just holding out now on Dennis. Dennis. Dennis, any issues, problems? Not much I can do to help. We still have Dennis.
I don't see Dennis in the room here, so maybe he lost connectivity or something.
Yeah, we may have lost Dennis. We can press. It's okay if he reestablishes connectivity and jumps back again, and his ship will be waiting for him where he left it.
That's fine.
Okay, so that just means, hey, so on the so here's what you can do though. Okay, Harold, why don't you play his ship until he returns? Okay, so what that means is you'll on your form, you'll put in a move for ship A, and then just submit another form for ship B.
Very good.
Okay, so that's how you
in his quarters. He's not running that ship.
Okay, there's somebody.
Let's see. Can you hear me now? Yeah, you're muted as well.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Where is everybody?
They're all in the main room. So
How did I get here?
well, it's a good question. You should have a blue button that says leave the room.
All right, hit that one. All right,
Yeah, hit that one and we'll meet in the other room until we get going.
Hello.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, what's going on, Harold?
Dennis was here. I found Dennis. He was in the breakout room. So I've sent him back to the main room.
Okay,
Let me hang with him to make sure he's going, and we'll.
sounds good.
And somebody I'm sure will come back to talk strategy with you. Hang on.
Okay.
Since I'm up here. All right.
How do you go to a room?
Say your ship B there.
I am B.
You are B.
Okay, Benson is B.
Ship B. So you can
Got
see
it.
her. She's right now over at J5, and you're on the French side. So if you want to jump into the French room, I think it's where some of the French folks are trying to come up with a strategy.
Okay, how do I get to the French room
So
here?
at the bottom of your Zoom controls, there should be a button for breakout rooms.
Got it.
Go to the French breakout room.
All right, on my way. French. I'm joining it now.
Turn, expecting them to turn. Because if we do what we do and they go straight, we'll go across their bow. We'll
That's
cross
right,
the T.
yeah.
So they're not
Mhm.
going to let us do that. So I'm thinking they're going to turn into the wind or with the wind.
Mhm.
So that'll be
All
a
right, sorry
broadside.
guys. I just joined. Sorry about that.
So if we don't turn, we have a chance of crossing the T on their stern. But it's a gamble
Okay.
because if they
If they
don't
go
do
straight.
what I'm thinking
Yeah.
they're going to do, we're kind of screwed. But it seems like the safe thing to do is, to turn with the wind. And that'll force them. But it's just going to be, we're just going to exchange broadsides though.
So port turn, starboard guns, move 3.
That sounds
Be
good.
the
Now,
expected move.
Now, if you do a turn, are you going to be able to advance 3? And a turn, you got the advance and transfer. Maybe you only be able to do 2.
No, it's the interface says you do the turn and then you move. So
Okay.
and
Got
these
the
are
wind-
45
we've got the
degrees,
wind
so
at
we'd
our
be going.
backs. We've got the wind at our back, so we'll probably
Uh-huh.
be moving 3.
Okay.
So
so
it depends on how they measure it because, a ship of sail doesn't move as fast parallel with the wind. It moves faster when it reaches.
Mm.
So, but it depends on how nuanced they are. I can't tell if we're reaching right now or if we have to turn to reach. But anyway, it'll be 2 or 3 for sure.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
lost without wooden pieces on the map, Jerry. Dennis, do you understand did you get the part on how to use the Google form?
No, I did not. I missed that, guys.
All right, that's okay. That's okay. So you can I can put in your orders for you if you'd like.
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
And he said your ship B, is that right?
Yeah, it should be. Mhm.
So what was the consensus here, Admiral White?
Well, I think that we were talking about 2 different options, but it seems like the safest option is for us to turn with the wind. So we'll go diagonally. And we expect them to turn with the wind. So they're probably going to do a lot of pivoting right now. But if we turn, then we're going to have a brief opportunity to cross the T with their bow because it takes 2 turns for them, right?
Yeah.
I think, Andrew, that's what we were talking about. So if we just go diagonally right now, they're going to have to meet that. So, yeah. So try to go as far as we can diagonally with the wind.
Port,
Yeah.
port 45 degrees, and then
Turn port, load starboard, move 3.
Yeah.
Okay. And all right. So, and then this captain, what are your orders for your gunners?
Starboard cannons.
Ready, starboard. Okay. So let's see. I just put my orders in. Dennis, I'll put yours in too. Then let's see.
Absolutely.
Turn 1. Your ship B. Is that what we said?
That's correct.
He
B as in boy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. 45 degrees. Move 3. Ready, starboard.
Mine are in.
All right. Our orders are in, guys.
All right.
And you've anticipated what you think he's going to do on the other side.
I'm also assuming that none of you are spies.
Oh,
We had spies briefly come into this breakout
We
room,
did.
so.
Shoot them off though.
mm,
That's right. All right. I'll see you guys in the main
Main
room.
room. Yeah.
Dennis, we're gonna hit that blue button again and head back to the,
Leave this room, correct?
yes, sir.
All right.
Let me find it. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. Ba-dum-bum-bum. Okay, I just reposted the link. If you lost it for the send.
Not seeing it.
Yeah, there it goes.
There we go.
Yep.
Thank
So, and I saw some questions in the chat here for the first round. Your gun range is 3. Okay. And yeah, it's a grid, which means diagonals are funky, but yeah, yes. So it's 3 squares in any direction. Only, and so realize this, it is a checkerboard, right? Which means that you're only firing down rows, columns, or pure diagonals. There's no funky on the edge kind of shot. It doesn't work that way. Okay, so you're either again firing clean down that clean, like a bishop or a rook. It's kind of how your gunfire flies.
So this is very simple. It doesn't really matter if you stand easy does not mean that your first salvo is better.
No.
Okay.
Stand
Let's
easy, just
the first
because your
load
gunners. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, because when we play with fratricide, you don't want those gunners shooting all the time because there's a good chance.
But they're perfect targets. It's practice.
Yeah. So, okay. Let me see here. I've got orders from everybody except for Middle, which would be Merle, because you just got the link.
Yeah,
there we go. Yep, all right. All right. So So I've got all the moves in for turn 1. So here's what'll happen now. Stand by. I'm going to port all your actions over to from the Google side. Hang on. Whoever just submitted turn 2, don't do that yet. Don't submit the next turn. Don't do that. Because what you just did, hang on, was you kind of erased, because it immediately moves on to the next turn. So I should have said, don't put in the next turn until I tell you this turn is complete. So stand by. I'm gonna bounce that turn 2 input, just because, like I said, otherwise it's kind of gumming up the system. All right, so stand by before you put in any more orders. All right, let's see how these ships move. All right, and all right, here we go. We're going to update the map. That was turn 1. So based on your actions, now, so what we get is this little shorthand. Okay, so if you see a yellow glow around your ship, you're taking fire. Yeah, you're getting hit. And you can see here, like ship 1, you're now in L1 heading northeast. That's that little shorthand. I know it can be hard to read depending on the resolution of your screen. But here, like ship B attacked G, and it attacked G for 1, B got hit for 1. Your health is down to 9. So again, ships with the glow around it, you're taking fire from somebody. Oftentimes what you do is just kind of track off your beam until you find an enemy ship, and that's who shot you. All right, so that's turn 2. That's the status of turn 2. All right, I'm now going to give you just 3 minutes to come up with turn 2. Go. Clock's running.
Well, they're totally against the wind. I mean, basically, all we have to do is keep going and get behind them, and we'll cross the T.
Which way are you saying to turn then?
Well, they're stuck, right? They can barely move right now because they're completely against the wind.
Okay.
So I'm thinking we just go behind them. So we keep maybe one turn, we keep going the way we are, and then we
Stay
turn
straight.
But we
Okay.
got a problem with ship A, don't we? Because ship A is just is kind of the second rank right now and
Mhm.
doesn't have a shot.
Well, I think I have a problem with all of you. I think ship A is fine.
Yeah, you do. We're in your way.
Yeah, what so we can ship A can bear back, but I don't know.
Is anything else going to hit it if you do? Like, so if you turn to starboard, that cancels out your diagonal. Then you could move 2 or something, but is that going to hit B?
Well, we can try. If B moves 3,
Yeah, we'd all have to move. I mean, A could move 3 and then everybody else moves 2, and that might get us back into a line.
there you
Okay.
go.
So the rest
you're
of
saying go
us,
straight.
so rest of us stay straight. Move to starboard guns.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
All right.
works for me.
And
right,
Harold, you go ahead
Dennis.
and put my orders in for that.
I will enter yours if you'd like.
Yes, yeah, go ahead, because that
Ship
I did
B,
have to
turn
reinvent the wheel.
2. Steady, she goes 2 hexes or 2 squares, right?
Tim, what we came up with is A is going to turn. The rest of us are going to keep going straight. Go straight to ready starboard guns.
Well,
if that works.
A is not. I don't think A is going to turn, right? A is going straight.
You're not. Oh,
No.
okay. You're going to go straight too, but go further. Okay.
That
Yeah.
was my yeah.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
good. Well,
Just
that's
to be able
what.
to get more guns in the line.
Now let's see if I executed it properly. All right, leave the room.
All right, bye.
In. You got about 20 seconds, and I got about half the orders are in. Okay, there's your 3 minutes. Let's get those last orders in.
You have A and B, Pete.
I have A and B for turn 2.
Very good.
Just
Or
putting in
should I
mine
say?
now.
Should I say very well?
Okay, looking for D. Yep, I just got D's. Looking for E, F, and G. I just got E. All the Brit moves are in. I'm sorry, all the French moves are in. Looking for the rest of the British moves. Well, we do this in, I've done this in tournaments, you know, with the brackets and everything. We do small ships, rapid bracket type thing. And we get anal about the time because we'll cut the form off, right? Because like, you know, this is for God and country, damn it. We're not just going to let you run over time. So we'll cut the form off at like 3 minutes. You can't, and your ship just sits there for a turn if you miss a round. I've got everybody except for F and J. F and J. I just got J. Looking for F for Nova. That's Merrill. I think there was a mutiny on Formidable.
Yeah, it sinks, doesn't it?
Well, you know, it's funny when we play games of the college, we'll get into these realism arguments from time to time. And what usually when a player brings up a realism complaint, what he really means is, I'm happy with all the abstraction and artificiality in this game that is helping me. I'm unhappy about this one thing that's not. Because when we usually go, oh, you wanted realism. Oh, in that case, a third of your watch is undertrained and will perform poorly under fire for the first time. You're going to have at least 10% of your aircraft stuck in the hangar bay. You're going to have 10% who fail their mission checks off the front end. I'm going to give you fratricide, and I'm going to make you put in dental readiness reports every third round.
And the Wagner Group mutinies on you.
Because you wanted realism. Okay, I've got all the orders. Now don't put in turn 3 yet until I tell you to. I'm now dumping your turn 2s into the gonculator. Okay, so we've had a collision. Your helmsmen are smarter than that. So what'll happen is I'm going to mod your helms. I'm going to jump in and intervene on the behalf of your helmsman here for a second. And
But of course, are the French navigators correct?
yeah, it's clearly it was a problem with
Obviously, they have the inferior crews.
it was the French that caused the problem.
The French have always been a problem, and we Britons have always known it.
Okay, so based on, that was turn 2, so I'm gonna bounce you. All right, so here's what turn 3 looks like. Screen is updating. Fleet actions are complete. All right, and again, if you're taking yellow, you're taking hits. So
Let
notice
it have it, lads.
the wind hasn't changed. Is it going to become a problem for the French? Because while you have the weather gauge, you also run against shoal waters, the top of the map, right? So you're all crowding into the top of the map because that's where the wind is pushing you.
With their luck, they'll hit a sandbar.
So there's a sandbar there. Yeah. All right. So that's the look at turn 3. You've got 3 minutes to give me turn 4. Clock is running.
I guess we should have asked about the map edge.
I thought there was no edge of the world, but well, that didn't go according to plan, did it?
No, it didn't. All right, well, so I think I definitely need to turn, or else I'm going to crash into more of you.
Yeah.
So I'll turn and move 2 or move 3.
Yeah, I think turning, we got that line at the top, right? So
Yeah.
that those 3
D and
have
E.
to turn.
D and E
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has to turn to starboard.
I
And
think
then,
so. But unfortunately, we don't have a good line, it looks like,
no.
because I'm
Well, what do
way
you
out of
think-
position now
What
compared to the line.
What do you think they're gonna do? They're gonna have to turn into the wind, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know. They're in pretty good. They're not in bad shape. I mean, they could just keep going the way they're going, since we have to do the turning because we got the edge of the world.
Yeah. I wonder if we just like try and run as far as we can, right? Like if we all turn 45 starboard, move free, get clear of
Sure.
their broadside ranges.
That I
Sure.
think is a good idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. All right.
All right,
Dennis,
You
I'll
gotta
do
reform.
I'll do yours as well, Dennis. This is turn
Yeah.
3, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
turn 3.
All right.
Yeah, ramming, yeah, is not a good idea. Only in that your helmsman will resist the temptation to ram.
Although I feel like we rammed the map edge here.
You have rammed the map edge. Yeah, usually it's random. The 50% of the time, the wind will remain where it is. A quarter, then it'll either do 1 tick clockwise or counterclockwise around the compass rose. So
Our flawed assumption was that there was an infinite map.
yes, I should have told you there's sandbars around the edges of
Well, we could have asked. Yeah.
the sandbars. in the gold.
What direction is the wind coming from? I don't see.
Right now
it.
it's so yeah, Dennis, if you look in the on the main map, if you look in the up towards the upper left corner, you'll see wind southwest.
Oh, okay, got it. I'm up
Okay.
to speed now. No
Yep.
pun intended.
Okay. Waiting on orders from Andy M. I know we'll have them all.
He says, let's see what thanks have to drop. Somebody's leaving.
Yeah, and again, if someone's got to bail, somebody else can take control of their ship, or you can just leave it out there as a hazard to navigation. Still waiting on Andy M. We have a classic models on the floor. Oh, there it is. Okay, I've got all the orders. Version of this game that we play every year in October, anniversary of Trafalgar. It's just a faculty game for fun. And in those we have collision, boarding party rules. Gets a little cutthroat because there's actually prizes. All right, so let me grab the final sets of orders for turn 3. And now I will dump them in. Stand by. Okay, we had a quickie collision here. Let me fix who's colliding.
Once again, it's the French, I'll lay odds.
Hey, where's here he is.
They are always inept when they put an armor man in charge of a naval vessel.
Still
Only
quiet.
time they got lucky was that in the revolution with that DeGrasse fellow.
All right, so updating the screen. Ships are moving. There they are. Move this out of the way. Okay, the French trying to maintain something of a formation, sort of. The Brits are a bit of a puddle in the center.
They won't have much of a formation when we're done.
So, let's see, who's G still taking hits. F, the health is starting to dwindle down. Yeah, great. Okay, so you are rolling into turn 4, 3 minutes.
Well,
Jerry, after this battle's over, you're going to lose your stripes.
Now, was E one of our ships? Was E a French ship?
I
Yes.
believe so. 5 on each, A, B, C, D, E.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it did not move.
It moved, but just one, I think.
Okay.
Oh no, it didn't move. It just turned. Yeah.
So it looks to me like we need to make another starboard turn with starboard guns.
Yeah, I think that's right. So the only question, so I'm obviously doing starboard turn, starboard gun. Should I go 1, 2, or 3? And that's going to depend on B. So Dennis, how far do you want to move? I don't want you to run into me.
Probably just, I'm thinking just, what do you think, Harold, about 1?
Yeah, I think,
And-
well, I don't think
and
we'll
C
have a
would-
choice to go much more than 2. So I think it's either
Yeah.
1 or 2. And
Yeah.
1 would be fine.
Yeah. And D, what if we turned to starboard and went?
Yeah,
2 or 3?
if you turn starboard and move 1, I'll also turn and move 1, and then yeah, we should still be in some gunnery range then.
Yeah, 'cause we should be hitting them we should have them by their stern. Unless they will probably, I'm thinking they're going to turn to starboard. And so we're going to be lined up again with them. So we need to open the starboard guns on these guys because they're going to turn to starboard and we're going to be lined up against them.
we're going to lose a line though. We got a nice line, the 3 ships up top of the map, but if they turn and then move the same, I think we're going to stack. Aren't we going to stack them in front? We're going to block
They're
fire.
They're going to
Well,
stack too.
Well, so what if I move to reestablish the line? What if I move further? Move D, turn and move 3, then B, turn and move 2, and then A and C could go 1.
Yeah.
Would that work?
Hypothetically, but I don't think you may not be able to go 3.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. Well,
If he moves
it's
2 and
worth
turns
trying
starboard.
anyway. I think. Yeah. I'll try going 3 to
Dennis,
get
you
it
wanna
out
move
of the
2?
way. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
should try to
yeah.
move 2.
Try to
because
move 2. Yeah.
Then that'll give you guys a clear shot.
All right, done.
All right. See you.
Yeah, when I play with the midshipmen, there's usually they have grudge matches afterwards because I send them their this will make a battle plot. It'll show you who turned where, classic kind of battle map.
Oh, that's
It
cool.
generates it at the end, and we'll send it to the classes, and then usually I get the whole we want a rematch.
Pete, is this
So,
proprietary
realize it's
software?
Not a white flag. That's the guy
No.
cleaning his underwear.
Yeah, someone asked me about this game. So basically, what you're looking at is an Excel spreadsheet. The map is an Excel spreadsheet. All right, it's just I've got some skill with Excel and macros. So the trick is it always requires a human in the loop. There's an air gap because I'm collecting your moves on Google Forms, right? But this is but it's running, the input is running on a separate Excel spreadsheet, essentially. So I take and I have a particular Google form and whatnot, and I've got a bunch of little rules written in Google Forms. Then I take what you're submitting, I'm the air gap filler, port it over into the Excel, then it updates on its own. So it's not a clean little, runs by itself. It's going to has to be an orchestrated thing.
Yeah.
But I usually use this also as an example when people get into we want to make games, and you can either go the Vassal route or that type of thing, or Tabletop Simulator and kind of thing, or if you screw around with it, you can probably get Excel to do more than you potentially realize. I've got an entire submarine simulator that I was working with that's built in Excel, where it's got a periscope. You turn the periscope, you see little targets out there. Yeah. So all right. So I got everybody's move. All right. I'm going to pull these in, and then we'll do one more move after this, and we'll see what the scores are. Let's see. G and J are trying to run into each other.
Notable that both are British.
Again, it's that whole coordination thing with your teammates.
Well, he was his helmsman. What do you expect?
All right. So after 5 full moves, the fleet action now looks like this. The wind has shifted, although it's not helping. The wind has shifted to the south.
It depends upon your point of view. Whether
True. It's not. That's very true. Looks like nobody's in Davies Jones's locker. G looks an extremis in terms of the length of her health bar. All right, we'll do one more move, and then we'll take a look at the scores. So 5th and final move, send it on in. You got 3 minutes.
Hey, Pete.
It's a lot of fun.
It is.
I think we're in good shape, actually.
So my key questions here are how, I presume for B and C, I presume you're both turning starboard. How far down are you moving? 'Cause I don't want you to be in the way of my shot, but I don't want to be in the way. Well, I don't know that I'm going to get a shot here.
Let's see, the wind is moving now from the south.
Yeah,
north.
wind's going to be against us.
Yeah, I
And
would, I'm gonna go starboard 3 and probably will
Okay.
only move 1.
Yeah.
it
I guess
looks to me, if we just turn one to starboard, and that opens up the guns on everybody. E hasn't moved in the last couple of turns, has it?
No, I stayed right where I was because they were passing right by me.
Yeah,
Oh,
you got
okay.
some good shots.
And they
in,
haven't been able to get a shot on me yet, and they're all bunched up.
Yeah.
So, but I think that's going to end now. So I'm kind of thinking of skedaddling, but I don't want to block you guys. So I think what I might do is just stay right where I am. Again, I'll take a lot of hits, but if you folks can get some targets in front of you, it's worth doing.
I think they're probably going to turn one starboard and move up a couple. I think if we just turned one starboard, that's going to open up the guns on A,
Yeah.
C, B, and D.
Oh,
And
you,
if you say
you,
that
think, you
E-
think just stay where we are then? Let them sail into range?
Well, because we don't, the wind's going to be against us.
Yeah,
They're
that's
going to
true.
turn to starboard, and they're going to move
Yeah,
up.
if they're
and
moving up, yeah.
and
Yeah, I
we're
can
going to
see-
be
I can see that.
parallel. And we're just
Okay.
blast away at each other.
So Dennis, do you want to move 1 square or 0?
I would just say, just turn starboard and not move at all, because they're going to turn starboard and move, and they're going to move right into our guns.
And starboard
Yeah.
cannons.
Works. Yeah, starboard cans. Works for me.
Okay.
All right. Over and out.
Okay, I've got still waiting on one French order and 3 British orders. About 10 seconds. Bring it on home.
Which French are you waiting on?
On the French side, oh nope, French are all in. Now
Good.
I'm just waiting on the British orders. I'm waiting on F, G, and J. Formidable, Guardian, and Juniper. And I just got Junipers waiting on F and G. Yeah, I put this together during the pandemic in that because we do this annually at the college, and in 2020 we couldn't do it annually at the college, and people are like, well, we're going to do something, aren't we? It's like, well, no. It's like, really? All right, let me see what I can put together.
How many ships have you done at once?
The max is 26, 13 on 13.
It's a lot of work for the human.
So okay, that's it. That's all the orders are in. So let's see how the final disposition rolls out here.
You realize, Pete, that I've passed all these people the flag signals for the fleet, and that we're operating pretty well here on the British side. This is typical.
All right, let's get the update here to turn. So what would be going into turn 6?
You don't want to know how many books I have on sailing vessels, do you? Or that I have almost every book Mahan wrote, or any of that stuff, right?
There is a Navy flag that says, "Stop doing what you're doing and do what I told you to do."
So I forget one of the games or Age of Sail games uses actual flags. So they set the players in, those little tiny school desks that you had in elementary school, and everyone had basically a flagpole, and you had to hold up signal flags. That you had a deck of them in front of you, and that's how everyone communicated. There was no voice; everyone just holding up flags.
It does change one's perspective. It's like we're doing an American Revolution game with our NSDM group, and they sort of got this thing that it's 6 weeks to 12 weeks to send a message to England, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, and it's 2 weeks by ship to go to the coastal cities for news. From the other, and it blows their mind.
Did Wiggs ever tell you the story about then Captain Borda and the signal flags?
No.
Remind me to tell you when I'm up.
Yeah. All right. So here's the scores. So it looked like, okay, so no one lost a ship. Everyone's ship took some degree of damage. Endeavor escaped undamaged. Juniper escaped undamaged. And Endeavor, this is just pure, whoever scores the most hits is in the front. So it looks like Jeremy is the most prolific captain, delivering 9 hits against the enemy and taking none himself. That puts Jeremy as the best captain. And yeah, overall, team-wise, the French scored 14 hits to the British 9 at this point in the game.
Well, it's because they started with the weather gauge and we finished before the engagement was over.
Well, you British, you ran away. You guys ran away.
It's about a third of the way into the time.
So
Jeez.
there is
Vive la France.
there is a typical kind of move action game that we do online for a variety of different groups and audiences and whatnot. Currently, we've got a game. So we have a game course coming up that we teach for government agencies. You've got to be either affiliated with education or a government agency. We do a course in August. And one of the feedbacks we got, we usually only teach the word game design course once a year in January. We're teaching again this year, both in January and August. And one of the things we've changed is demonstrating types of games. So we demonstrate a matrix game, and matrix games are always they look so easy, low overhead and easy to put together. And then when you try to do one, you realize how much of a matrix game hinges on that skilled facilitator to be able to pull off an effective matrix game. And again, it's not suited for all types of problem sets, but we demo a matrix game for them. And we give them some board gaming examples. As a matter of fact, now we have a design exercise where it's a 2-week course. And throughout the course of the week, they basically design and develop a Titanic game. And I have them doing stuff with Titanic and vampires and zombies. And people say, why do you do all that and don't do Navy stuff? And I go, well, because the course is open across the government. Oftentimes I'll get folks, I can get folks from State Department. I'll get folks from other agencies, or I'll get a group that might be Navy heavy or surface warfare heavy, but I got nobody who understands submarines or nobody understands air. So I'm never sure what the experience or talent pool will be in any given class. But everybody knows something about Titanic. everybody knows something about zombies and everybody knows something about vampires. So I use those because the principles are the same. And so in this year's August class, they'll be going and they'll be designing a Titanic game. Originally, all they had to do was come up with the broad outline of a design. Now we make them make it. And over the course of the game, we get war game or game construction kits with, you know, blank maps and blank this and blank that and magic markers and dice and all sorts of arts and crafts crap. And then they suddenly discover, oh, it was easy to throw the idea on a whiteboard. It's a hell of a lot harder to, you know, manifest it with a playable rule set. So that's a change this year. And the other change is with wargaming. One of the things that we weren't demoing in terms of types of game was kind of that classic government, put people in different rooms, have them play over a computer environment. So we'll be doing that with this one coming up. We're not playing the Trafalgar game. We're actually playing a Battle of Midway game. That, again, it's easy to play. It auto-adjudicates. So it's appropriate for the course, but it checks a lot of the blocks in terms of what you have to think about when you put together one of these games where you're going to separate players and what's the communication elements between cells. Why are you separating players? Is that actually meeting a design and research requirement that you put them in different rooms, or can you just put all the blue team in one big room and not worry about it? Again, all things that we want people to think through and consider. One of the quote problems with the course is you know, my experience, remember I gave you my background. So I tend to come at it when I talk about government gaming from an embarrassment of riches, right? I grew up in a huge facility with lots of space, lots of computer support, lots of money, lots of people. So I tend to build big. The War College tends to be what we call the apex predator of wargaming, in that because I'm so big, I'm there. Therefore, I eat big problems. I do big games because I can. And that's not to disparage this. There's lots of organizations that can run much smaller games. Matter of fact, oftentimes we try to encourage people, look, if your game can be solved with a relatively small game, 10-person game kind of thing, single room, looking at it, an open adjudication type thing, then we recommend you don't come to us. We can do it. But if I take on that project, it means I'm not doing a 400-player multi-cell game that's going to run over the course of a week. And I'm one of the fewer agencies that can do that. So we tend to, you know, we always have to kind of reset ourselves when we're working with smaller groups or folks that will be going back to wargaming organizations that don't have that type of resources. What are really the fundamentals, and not to get roped into the, well, this is how the War College does it. Well, you're probably not us simply because we're big and blah, blah, blah. So, all right. That was my dip for today. Harold, kind of like back over to you.
Excellent. Pete, thanks for taking the time. We're an hour and 40 minutes in. We'll save questions for face-to-face when we see you at the college, at the museum, and hopefully you'll be able to wander around and play some games with us if you have some